Today, we're going to talk about templates. So there's some very specific things that I have to account for when making said net handle template. It starts with masking this sucker off. This is actually 1/4 inch polycarbonate or acrylic or something. It's 1/4 inch thick material. It's nice if it can be clear. You can also do this out of plywood or MDF. Just know that those can deteriorate pretty quick. When you work with a piece that is see-through, you can actually see the grain that will make up the actual handle, and that really helps rather than just drawing it in place and hoping for the best. So I have my net template here. This is the actual hoop. Now I have a center line marked here, and I'm going to place it right along the edge of the acrylic, and then I'm going to transfer that center line right here. I'll measure from this side to the center, and I will transfer that mark down here. Now that I've established a nice center line that I need to work off of, I can take my circle jig, which has center marks here. And this circle jig, I'll put a link in the description to a good one below, and that will tell me the end radius of my handle. Now I'm gonna measure out exactly how big I want my handle to be, or how long. So I got 16 inches to work with. Shoot, I'm just gonna take it all the way just to the end. So this specific template is gonna have a special treat in it, which is actually gonna be this beautiful little salmon. Now, I have to account for that all the way down. I do wanna make it as flowing as possible. So this is the part of your design where keep practicing, keep playing with it, to get that nice flowing action from your handle, because it's got to feel good in the hand. All right, I've got a nice gradual taper, you can see there. That's looking pretty good. Now the tricky part, this is where I want my strips to land. On this end, I've gone and measured 4.5 inches to this mark. That basically represents where I want my sweep to be. So where I want these strips to come across and have that kick out. And in this case, I'm just gonna gamble here. I'm gonna mark at 1/2 inch. It's gonna give us 1 inch of meat right here. And we're gonna sweep in. That'll be my tightest point right here. So everything's coming together really well, and we're gonna head to the bandsaw and cut this thing out. We're in the home stretch. We just got to take everything to the line so it stays nice and even. So if you don't have access to an edge sander or a spindle sander, you can always use something for these straight edges, just as simple as a palm sander like this. That works just fine. Get it close to the line and you'll be good to go. You can also use just hand files like this to get the acrylic, to get that acrylic down to size. For the radius, you can always take a rounded file and work it down to shape as well. So those are a couple options. So if you're working with acrylic, you can actually get this melted acrylic or polycarbonate stuff built up. This is something to actually pay attention to, whether you're on the bandsaw or with the sander itself, is these little nubs can actually change the angle that your piece is actually sitting at. You want to make sure that you go slow and remove that whenever you can. So if we're taking care of the neck or the throat in here, it's time to get out, hold reliable. Bam! Spindle sander. So at this point you have a 100% ready to rock and roll net handle template. Now you could just peel off the blue tape, use this on your piece of material and trace it and use this as an edge guide later on. But we're gonna go another step. Now the next step is optional because I have a very special idea for this net. It is gonna involve using my Plunge router and the little template guide that comes with it. Grizzly Pro. Now this is just for reference. I'm gonna end up scoring this with my knife. So for the sake of consistency, I'm gonna go ahead and do a center line. And connect the dots. So if you have giant Forstner bits that are close to the size you need, rock and roll with that. I'm gonna go ahead and hit each edge here with my Forstner. I brought the boss out so we can actually pick out the piece of wood that this template is going to showcase. So let's bust out a bunch of maple. All right, so it's official. We have decided amongst my stash of beautiful maple, and it is this one, the sausage quilt, that, no, I think it's just the name that got it, because it's gorgeous. So I made my template for my fish cutout a little bit oversized. And the reason is I'm gonna be using a template guide with my Grizzly Plunge router. Now this template guide, you have to know the difference between the thickness of the bit you're actually doing the cutting with and the outside edge of this, because it does run along the exterior of this guide plate. Now, so you'll take that outside and minus the bit diameter, and that is where you wanna land inside of your template. Make sense? Check it out. That is how I make a standard net handle template. Hopefully you got some good tips out of this one and you can use them in your own builds. So thank you for following along, liking and subscribing, and I will catch you on the next one. Stay tuned for a future video where I bring this net to life.